welcome back to another episode of It Takes a Village podcast. I have another really special guest, somebody who I actually crossed paths with way back in 2014, well before he exploded on the international scene back at Bateman Secondary. Myron Dueck, welcome to your show.
Not sure it's my show, but I'll take that. Thank you, Dan. 2014, hey?
2014, back in Abbotsford, Robert Bateman Secondary.
Yeah, I think I remember that presentation.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'll take that.
So you are the author of Grading Smarter, Not Harder, and also Giving Students a Say. You are an educational consultant. You're a speaker. You have expanded your reach all across the world. Can you give the listeners and viewers just a bit of insight as to who Myron Dueck is, how you came to be, and what you're currently up to?
Myron Dueck is a guy who I always say is trying to figure this whole thing out. I'd call it a disaster if I walked into a room and left later and people said, that guy thinks he knows everything. Because I don't. I've been trying to figure this thing out. I went to a grading conference in like 2005 or 2006, which just kind of shook my world. And it was because the Johnny Cash of assessment was up at the mic, Rick Stiggins, and he rocked my world and he rocked my reality. And probably ever since then, I've been a whole lot more willing to question what we do and why we do it in schools. And besides that, I have a great partner in life, Tracy. She's wonderful. I've got two kids, Elijah and Sloan, who are finding their way through this world. And when I'm not doing these things, I'm outside building something, or I'm in my shop building something. I'm a builder by habit and passion. So that's kind of who I am.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've seen a couple of your keynotes. You often talk about, how you grew up in kind of a rural community. Where are you stationed now, and what was your upbringing?
Yeah, I grew up in a tiny little town called Rosenort, Manitoba. It's still there. My dad was a building mover. My mom was a nurse. So I think I inherited. You can't ever tell a building mover that something can't be done, because it always can be. So I'm mired with that. And I guess I brought a little compassion to it because my mom just watched her be a nurse and always looking after people. So I think, and my dad was Mennonite, my mom was Irish, so I can't find inner peace. I pick fights and I try to resolve them before they start.
Totally.
So anyway, that was Rosenort. Graduated with like 13 other people or 12 other people. I think we had a 13-person graduating class.
Enough for a basketball team.
Yeah, exactly. But we're a good volleyball squad, and I played a lot of volleyball in Rosenort, and that's been a huge part of my life, coaching that. So playing it, then coaching it. I'm in Summerland, BC now. I kind of gravitate towards small towns. In between, my wife and I, we moved to New Zealand for a little while and lived in just a tiny little town there too. So small towns attract me. And right now we're in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia.
And you've held titles of teacher, principal, district principal. You're currently spanning again your reach across the world. Can you just walk us through the transition? And is this your final level of success, or what are you hoping for?
Well, I don't know if I'm not sure we're defining it as success just yet. That's we'll see how that goes. But no, I think there's some things that have gone my way, and there's some things that I'm still thinking about. I started as a grade 4 classroom teacher, my first ever half-time position in Morris, Manitoba. I knew the superintendent. I played volleyball with his son, and he always told me, Myron, when you graduate, I got a job for you. And I didn't know it was a half-time grade 4 position. And And I really cut my teeth in grade 5, 6. And, Dan, to this day, I would say that that might have been some of the most fun I ever had teaching,
Mm.
is just figuring it out. Grade 5 and 6 kids in Morris think you're awesome if you just spend time with them, and you're somewhat real, and you bring a bit of humor and fun to the classroom and all those things. I really cut my teeth there. Um, then jetted over to New Zealand for a year and a half and taught a very similar grade level there. And when I came back to Canada, just slowly drifted towards high school. And I love that too. Like, absolutely loved teaching, young adults and people who are just about to head out into this big crazy world, and trying to figure that out as well. So and then along the way began questioning my practice. I think I always brought myself and my person to the classroom. Like I said, starting in, it was either '05 or '06 in Portland. I think '05. Just questioning a little some of the fundamental things we do. And I know we'll probably get into that, and I don't want to go there too soon, but that was a huge part of my path. And then administrator at the high school level. I love it. Loved it. Like, really, every day is different. You're not looking at the clock.
Mhm.
I needed a change. I needed a change then because I couldn't teach the Meech Lake Accord one more time. That was really
Hmm.
what it came to.
Hmm.
Like, I was teaching grade 11, and I loved grade 9, 11, and 12 social studies. And one day I just said, oh, okay, doing another social studies 11, which I like. I
Hmm.
like the course.
Yeah.
But I literally said to myself, I can't teach the Meech Lake Accord one more time. First of all, no one cares. And secondly, I just have to shake this up. And and um and so I did. Went to district administrator. Now I'm entirely on my own, running this little company with my wife. And is this the last stop? I don't know. I don't know. It's a really good question. For some crazy reason, I've been thinking lately about a doctorate.
Mm.
Don't ask me why. Maybe there's another book kicking around in there. But as far as position goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'll do this for a while.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of experience, so maybe we'll get into the granular things that I want to ask you about. But can you pinpoint a time where you started questioning the traditional idea of success in schools? Was it when you were a teacher, administrator, etc.?
Teacher for sure. Maybe for the third and last time, I'll mention that conference. I was, and I mean it. I really mean it that way. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
pivotal. I'm sitting there at a conference I didn't want to go to. I was goaded into it with the promise of basketball tickets and a brew pub. And I've told a million audiences this story. I was surfing IKEA online for an armoire. And I know it's not my finest moment, with my district paying for me to go to a grading conference, but that's exactly what I was doing. And Rick Stiggins takes the mic and he says, I wonder if your students could answer 3 questions. And he's yelling. And I would say that if Rick was sitting beside me, he yells at the mic. It's just what he does. Could your students answer, where are we going? Where am I now? And how do I close the gap? And I tried shaking those questions. I tried ignoring them. It didn't work. Even on the very first one, I was the guy that walked down to the podium. Hi, I'm Myron. I don't want to be here. He goes, hi, he laughed. That's exactly what I said to him. And I said, and now I really didn't want to be here because you're making my mind swirl a little bit with questions that make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
And so that, Dan, was when I started questioning it. And I thought, well, why don't we share the learning targets really clearly with students? Like, why wouldn't we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We, and especially, and I noticed myself as a teacher, and I looked at my colleagues around me, and, if an administrator ever walked in and said, something really big is going to happen a month from now, but I'm not going to tell you, people would freak out, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
teachers want it straightforward and solid and predictable. And we don't do that for students. And At least I wasn't, and I know a lot of people aren't. So when Rick said, "Where are we going?" that that question just made a lot of sense. And I had fully intended on leaving it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to go nowhere near his, where am I now is the second question. And I was like, well, I just give my students a grade and, they
Mm-hmm.
got a report card. But this whole how do I close the gap question, the third one, rattled me good and proper because are you talking retests, Rick? And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, I am. So, well, yeah, I want no part of that. I was like, la, 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 in
Right.
that. I'm not ready
Yeah.
to go there. But, um, but eventually I was ready to go there, and it was fundamental.
And this is such a broad question, but what does meaningful success look like for a student today? Maybe before you answer that question, just to go back to what you're saying earlier, I think the whole Portland conference has infused its way into kind of the Western, particularly the Lower Mainland. You see a lot of teachers formative summative approaches with infusing, you know, uh, projects into the learning now. Like they're giving choice to students. I think they're slowly making a change. But um, if you were to share how a student sees success today, what would that look like?
You know, boy, that's becoming a tricky word, success. I think it used to be a lot easier to define that. And I'm going to jump right off the end of the diving board here and
Yeah, do
say
it.
AI resilience. Um, both my kids have it front and center, that AI is here and it is changing things before their very eyes. Um, you know, they are they're recognizing and noticing that they need to be malleable, that they need to be able to take things as they come their way and adjust, sometimes in the moment or at least really close to the moment. Um, I think they're looking out there at everybody from YouTubers to folks who are finding success in the business world. I think it's about finding a niche. It's about being relevant.
Hmm.
And it means showing up when you say you're going to show up. It means treating people well. There's all kinds of interesting shifts going on right now. I was reading just the other day that, okay, this is going to be a tangent. The department store back in the day. I think it was a Terry O'Reilly episode of Under the Influence or something. And he was talking about department stores like Eaton's and Sears and all these. They wiped out the mom and pop shops that were up and down the street, like the shoe store and the tailor shop and all that. And now those are coming back. They're coming back. Yes, you can buy things on Amazon, but that face-to-face personal service is coming back in lots of places. And, here's a shout out. I shop for all of my clothes with Matt at Elliott Row in Penticton on Penticton's Main Street, all of them.
Hmm.
And well, it's a bit of an exaggeration, like maybe not a pair of swimming trunks or something, but anything I wear on stage or whatever. And because he treats me like he knows who I am when I walk through the door, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna put that blue jacket, Myron, with these, and it'll look great." And where am I going with this? It's 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 treating people that way. One of my former students who had the biggest impact on my life is running his own electrical outfit now, and I could talk about him at some point here. Um, and he just said to me, "Tell anybody you talk to that, yeah, I was a rough kid in school, and I made all kinds of mistakes, but in my company, just when the phone rings, answer it, and when someone says, 'Would you be able to show up at 3?' then show up at 3."
Hmm.
And he says, "That's the key to my business."
Hmm.
And so there is a lot to this thing called behavior. There's a lot to this thing called effort and participation, all that. But as I've made clear in my books, for goodness sakes, don't grade it.
Hmm.
Just help students figure that stuff out too. But
Hmm.
whatever we do, don't blend it with a grade on how you're doing in science or how you're doing in math, because those things matter too. For anybody who's listening to this, oh, so Myron, you don't think a good grade in science matters? It probably does. Better than a worse grade. It'll put you in a better position than that. But here's one more thing I heard, and I don't know if anybody's going to agree. Somebody said to me recently, "You know what, Myron? A plus kids end up working for C plus kids." And I haven't
Mm,
shaken that one. Like
mm,
and it's like everywhere I look, it's true. It's true. Everywhere I
yeah.
look. Anyway,
Well, let's get. I mean, you mentioned the behavior piece, and something that I learned very very early in my career as an educator. What is fundamentally broken around assessment for kids, or how we assess kids? Has there been a shift over the last 20 years, or are we still stuck in our ways from your perspective?
no, there's been a shift. I mean, I sometimes look at what what sessions in my catalog if I send them out. What gets asked for? And I'm telling you right now, Dan, for the first 10 years, I had a session called What Are We Supposed to Do About Homework? And it would have been probably the most asked for session besides maybe an overall what's an assessment plan. Like I would kind of walk people through like maybe my first book kind of thing. And it's not being asked for much anymore. And that indicates to me that there has been a shift because I said for years, one of the things to answer your question, one of the things that's fundamentally broken is we assign homework to students and they take it home and we assume they did it when they could have done it with anybody else and all that, and we grade it and we grade like crazy. Like we grade this and we grade that. And for so many years when I first started teaching, if somebody did something, I'd just run for a red pen and grade it as fast as I could. Um, and I think that was what was broken, and I think there's a shift that's gone on. Are we still maybe a little content heavy in some cases? I think so. Um, are we a little teacher centric in some places? Probably. Um, but I do think there's a shift there, and some of that shift is being like literally forced in ways that I think are okay. Like you take British Columbia moving to a new curriculum. I I show that curriculum all over the world. And I don't know if people in BC are going to appreciate this or not, but it's true. Um, people like the framework. Like there's a content side that we say this is important that you know what equilibrium or a cell or a social issue is, and then there's the skill side or competency side where you must take an ethical stance or you must collaborate or you must whatever and people really like it. And I
Mhm,
think to answer to what I'm trying to do with your question is say those type of structures I think have helped us figure this out because it's not just about the content, but the content still matters because you need material to work with, right? And that's what your science content is or your social studies content or your PE or your health or your drama, whatever. You have to have content. But we are figuring out that it's what you do with it that matters far more.
mhm, mhm. Um, are kids focused more on grades and points than learning in your travels? I know, I've been an educator since 2010, and there's always that race to get, the highest grade to get into the best university college. But in my head, and this might be controversial, but I feel that there's a lot of students who fall through the cracks and maybe aren't getting supported because, they're just going to a trade school or they're taking a year off and, trying to get an apprenticeship somewhere. But like you said, a lot of, at least a lot of my friends who didn't go the traditional university route, they're making significantly more than, myself or, you know, a, 8 to 10 year teacher. Right. So, that's kinda where my mind goes. Are we still focused on grades and points?
Well, I don't mean to. Oh man, there's another saying out there. Maybe it's a touch too early in the morning for me to remember it. Um, there's a saying out there, something to the effect that we honor what we celebrate, right? And do we celebrate the 99.2? I don't know. You'd have to go to an awards night at your local high school and see what they're awarding. Um, maybe that was it. We award what we value. Yeah, that kind of thing. Like that kind of idea, right? So can I tell a story?
Absolutely.
Nice. Um, so for years, I sat. in the Summerland Secondary graduation ceremony, and the big moment would come along where they would name, the top 10 students by grade point percentage, and the town would ooh and awe, and the top 10 scholarships were awarded, starting at 94.2, blah blah blah, this person and that person, and I just year year after year after year, I bought less and less of that part of the ceremony. Like when I got to administration, I saw that just like I did. Sometimes you're crunched at the end for your grades and you get a number in there and you're kind of flustered. It's the end of the year. And then how on earth can we differentiate 95.2 from 95.6? And we were selling a lie, like like in some ways. Not that those kids didn't work really hard for those things, and not that they weren't smart kids. They were. But come on, when routers or whoever the survey people tell you that they're accurate 19 times out of 20 plus or minus 3, at least they're honest about where they're at with their
Mhm.
number. And
Mhm.
I don't think we've always been that way in education. We haven't been honest about our numbers. And so, all the way back to what you said, like now I am at some of these ceremonies and my own kids are in some of these grades, and we're still sometimes celebrating that while there's an empty seat because that student's already getting their heavy duty mechanics apprenticeship. They may or may not make it back for grad, and they're going to make $200,000 in northern BC starting next year. Like,
Mm, mhm.
so yeah, yeah, great question, Dan.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Um, does learning become different when students feel a sense of ownership? I mean, this goes into a little bit of the student voice piece that you often speak about. Um, grades aside, but
yeah,
is it more impactful if students have a bit of a say in where they go?
for sure. Some of these things I like to illustrate things with story. I was in is I was visiting a conference this last year in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and I met an educator there by the name of Mike Hibbs, who's teaching in Turkmenistan, I believe, uh, School of Dushanbe, I believe it's called. Anyway, he comes to my session on student voice, and I was showing him something that Marcus Blair, a wonderful teacher at Summerland Secondary, he and I, it started with him. We were trying to figure out how he was trying to figure out how students could build better inquiry questions for themselves. And we ended up making a pizza menu of how to build a question. And you can find it on my website. It's under pizza inquiry on the first page, myrondueck.com, shameless advertisement there. Um, and what it means is a student clicks on it and you have a sentence starter. How does, what makes, why is, all these sentence starters. And then you got this pool of things over here, like we call them the catalysts or the nouns or whatever. So let's say it's social studies, and you have pandemic and inflation and democracy and social media. Put nouns over there. Essentially, they're nouns, right? So you go, how does, and you go pick a noun, social media. Then you go look at the verb box. Now you need a verb. Damage, harm, help, inflate, improve, diminish, whatever. And then you either go back to that noun box. So you essentially build a question. How does social media impact democracy? And now you got a question, right? So we built this thing, and my goodness, it just took off. Like, I got teachers all over the world that I'll visit somewhere and they'll send me, hey, check this one out. We make them like it's booster juice. And somebody says the straw is the beginning and the cup is this, and they have all these things. So I show this to Mike Hibbs. He's teaching grade 7 at an international school in Dushanbe, Turkmenistan. Somebody can look that up in an atlas and see if I'm right, but I think it's Dushanbe. And someone right now is paging through there. I'm going to find out if it's right. So he was at my session and he comes up to me and he goes, I got to try this with my grade 7s. I got to try this. This pizza. This is the whole, you know how he says, Myron, how you come to a conference and you just hope to get one thing. And I'm like, oh, I know it. Trust me. And he's like, this is my one thing. 2 days later, I get an email from Mike and he has built this for his grade 7 class. And he has photos to back it up of actual paragraphs of actual students. And he said, Myron, the writing improved immediately. Immediately. There are students in my class who I didn't know could sit down and be motivated enough to write a paragraph. And I said, well, why do you think it works? Because it's about them. It's their question. And it was just one more example. And I have a teacher from Georgia who wrote me using a very similar approach. How she said, we used to just give our entire class of students the same question. And then we wonder why they copy from each other. We give them all the same question. And then I have to grade 30 answers to the same question. And it's so boring. And now I've got a different question coming back. And if you set the criteria, Dan, and you can use the same criteria, you could use the same rubric, you could use the same everything, but at least the questions are different. And that's one avenue that I think really is making a huge difference, and it's about student voice and choice.
What are students carrying right now that adults may underestimate?
What do you mean when you say carrying? Because my mind goes in a bunch of places that way. Can I throw that back to you? And
Sure.
What do you mean, Dan?
Well, I think the whole theme of this episode for me, at least, is if a student were to leave high school, graduate with say a 99%, but yet they feel disconnected, anxious, unsure of themselves in some capacity. To me, I don't think that's a level of success. I think we've missed the mark in some ways. So to that end, are students feeling pressure? Do they feel anxious? Are we supporting them in the appropriate ways? Are we missing some areas that maybe we should change the spotlight on?
Yeah, I know this is so easy to say, but I just really, really believe it. And it is that I don't know that we are quite honoring the various areas in our school enough right now that somebody could be 99.2% in. So listen to me. Listen, I'm still saying it. I'm saying it like that's who they are. Somebody is 92 point whatever. I still speak that way. Say somebody has a 99.2 in physics. I think we're missing something if we don't provide opportunity and honor all those other areas in our school. Okay, story time from Myron. Can I tell another story?
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorites. So I was vice principal at Penticton Secondary School, and there's 3,000 people in the audience for graduation, and I'll leave her name out. I think I have permission to use it, but it doesn't really matter. We'll call her Sarah. And Sarah was the valedictorian with the highest grade point average in Penticton Secondary School, 300 graduates or so. And I'm on the curtain. I'm operating the curtain. And I'm about to open up the curtain. And because she's going out there to do her speech. And I said, so Sarah, you ready? Yeah, she says. And I go, are you okay? Are you okay? And she goes, I don't know. I'm thinking about something else right now. And I go, what are you thinking about? I wish I had taken photography with Mr. Stasiak. And that one just landed. And I said, excuse me? I wish I had taken photography with Mr. Stasiak. That's what I thought I heard. And I said, you're thinking about that right now, Sarah. That. there's 3,000 people about to hear you out there. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And she says, you know why I'm thinking it? Because the very reason I'm up on this stage, and here's essentially what she said. This won't be word for word, from 18 years ago or wherever it was. She said, the reason I'm on this stage is because I can study my butt off and get 99s in chemistry and physics and biology and math and English. But I don't know what the path of success, your word, Dan, from before. I don't know what the path to success looks like in photography. I can't study my way through that. And I didn't feel confident taking it. But I would see these students going down the hallways with cameras around their neck and straps and figuring out how to put a collage or a portfolio together of photos. And I just wish it was me. But I didn't have the guts to do it. And the reason I've just never, ever forgot that was that I think one of the things we could do in our schools would be some of these courses be pass-fail courses. Like MIT is dabbling with this right now around, if it goes your way, fine, use the grade. If it didn't go your way, you were never there. You can look it up on their first year policies in their registry. At least they were there the last time I looked, and they've been there for years. In fact, they're expanding it. You can, so long as you're a student at MIT, you can apply 48 credit hours to that system, no matter what year you're in, no longer just the first year, but any year, because you can go take a course and see how it goes. And is it something you want to switch to? Is it something that you want flexibility in? And Sarah was highlighting that issue way back then. Was I ready to do something with that? Probably not then, but when I sat on one of the grad committees for the province of BC, which is one of the hats I've worn is one of the, Ministry of Education committee that did contribute to some of the changes in our new curriculum. Our little committee lobbied hard for a reduction in the credit hours you must spend in a classroom and move to things like credit, no credit. Like I don't like pass fail. You either got credit or you didn't get credit, and have less of it hinging on is Sarah keeping her 99% average? So I know I rambled there for a bit. Probably ramble with every question,
That's
but
okay.
I think that story sums up a whole bunch of stuff that needs a second look.
I kind of mentioned it earlier. You were at my first school, and part of our school plan, which every school has, is to try and get people or the staff on board in a certain direction. And in that particular array of years, I want to say 3 to 5 years, we had a plan to get to 95% staff or teaching staff on board with updating their assessment practices. And we were all cohesive in how we did that. We ended up meeting that goal, which is great. But I could imagine that not every single school finds that level of success or even buy-in for that matter. Because you have a lot of people who will throw out teacher autonomy and that kind of thing. So in saying that, how do we get educators on board with the evolution that's currently happening without them feeling attacked?
We're not the only area, industry, profession, whatever you want to call it, that finds change to be difficult. Change is hard because it's hard work. It means deprogramming some ways we did things. I don't know about you, Dan, but I decided to become a teacher one day. I think it was in grade 9. I was watching my teacher, Grant Plett, do what he did. And I remember thinking, I think this is what I should do. Remember it. And I could coach volleyball. I could come to school each day. I like schools. But here's the thing. I think I modeled what I was doing after Mr. Plett and a few other people right at that time. And you don't realize it till years later that you modeled your teaching practice after how you were taught. And I think all of us deal with that. because you make the decision to join a system, and of course you emulate that system that you chose to join because the system worked for you. There's parts that you liked about it, whatever. And you used the word 99. I'll say this: 99% of teachers out there had, I think, good experiences in schools. When you bump into that 1% that didn't, they're incredibly interesting to talk to because they joined to change it. Most people joined to replicate it. And I have drifted over to that 1%, a little more than the 99. I think over time. And with that shift, I think comes the second part of your question. How do you bring people along without them feeling scolded or attacked or whatever word you used? There are some people who do what I do, and I sometimes find, and I'll leave names out, of course, that they want to scold the audience. They want to make people feel bad about what they've done. And I've never found that all that motivating. It might jar me, but I don't know if it motivates me. I think you have to show people that you've tried something yourself when you're talking about it. I think you have to show vulnerability, that people know and hear that not everything has gone your way that you've ever tried. It doesn't always perfect in your classroom. And you have to laugh a bit at this thing, and you have to enjoy the conversation, and sometimes laugh, sometimes cry, sometimes be angry, but you have to elicit some emotions in this. And I think that's what I've tried to bring to changing and shifting assessment practices. Because those are the kinds of days and sessions that I appreciate. And I've always tried to build something that I would be okay sitting through or being in or whatever.
So one little practical takeaway for educators right now, what's one small thing that an educator could do to make a small or big difference right now?
I would grade fewer things and have fewer, more meaningful learning opportunities in classrooms. Build a system that honors mistakes and errors, whatever that looks like, because that to me is what I am seeing in my own children going into their summer jobs. I see it in some of the structures, even at their universities. What are you learning from error? And where did that struggle impact your learning? And there's so much research around that. Dunlosky's amazing article about 15 Dunlosky and Associates, their article about 15 things they studied in schools and what's effective and what's not. And they put them into 3 categories, like really effective, this block of 5, and pretty effective, this 5, and these 5 aren't at all. It's one of the first times I saw practice testing in smack, like at the top of that top 5. And what they said is that it's a struggle, right? You try to work through something and you struggle with it, and it creates connections in your brain and your memory, and away you go. So I'm talking way too long about one shift you'd make, and here I'm talking about a bunch of them. But grade fewer things, build in error, amplify student voice. That's what I would do.
Awesome.
If I was a starting teacher, I wish somebody would come up and tell me those 3 things. This is what you should try to shoot for, Myron.
And in one of your recent conferences I was at, I think it was Forbes, maybe top 10 traits that people might need to have. And I think you compared the list from 2025 to call it 2015. Correct me if I'm wrong on those dates.
There's the World Economic Forum's top 10 job skills.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with that information, what are some of those skills and traits that will matter most in the future for our young folks?
Well, I'm sure there's listeners that'll predict this, right? It's the kind of thing we've been talking about with 21st century skills and all that. But off the top of my head, they have had, so they shift them every 5 years. So I showed the 2015 list, I showed the 2020 list, and now it's 2025. They're kind of cheating because they're combining more things in 2025. 2015 is singletons, like there'll be complex problem solving, people management, there'll be singletons, right? And then their most recent list is multiple things. But so they'll have resilience, tolerance, flexibility as one of the things, right? Uh, Critical thinking skills. This one, number 2, I believe this year in 2025, sorry, not this year, but last year, active learning and learning strategies. That one I found so interesting. It's never been on the list before. And that I think is interesting in an era of AI, active learning. So how do we get people to be face-to-face and moving about the classroom and going outside and all these things? It's active learning. And it's not a sit and get model. So, social influence, I think, is on there. Those, I think that it is an interesting little rudder, if you will, for any of the boating community out there. We got a rudder that I think that list at least could help direct us to some of the things we'd want to do in our individual classrooms. You can do those things in any curricular area. I think it just means that we have to shift our thinking towards that.
AI is such a huge shift in particularly in education. And I was just reading yesterday that I think, Mark Carney came on Twitter and said, "Hey, we're ready to build." And I think there was this photo of a massive data center being plopped right beside BC Place. And I don't know if that's exactly where the location is going, but I found that to be interesting and one of the most beautiful parts of the world. You're gonna put that there, but we don't have to dive in too much to the AI conversation. But are you worried about AI in schools? In the next 3 to 5 years, I would imagine that there's going to be massive changes. But what are your superficial thoughts on where this is going?
Well, teachers were against encyclopedias. Teachers were against Encarta, Google. Not all of them, but you can look it up. There's opposition each time. This is our moment, right? Whoever's in education right now, this is when it changes. Dan, I was in grade 6 when they brought the TRS 80s in from Radio Shack, and we were like working on computers and those silver and black ones. And yeah, this is going to shift things incredibly. I listened to a David Bowie interview about the internet, and he was on, I think, Hard Talk, I think BBC. And the guy said, "Do you think this internet thing is going to be very, very different?" And David Bowie's like, "Oh, it's going to rock the world. It's just going to change everything." And the guy goes, "No, it's just a different delivery system of information." "Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, no, it isn't. It's an alien life form," is what I think what he says. I think he was onto it. Internet changed a lot, and I think AI is going to be a whole nother step. And I'm gonna say one more thing. I think somebody said to me the other day that the more dirty your hands are, the safer you'll be. I don't think C-3PO is going to walk in and change the light up above my desk here anytime soon. I've done some electrical. Show me a robot at scale that you can build to be cost effective to do what a human electrician can do. I don't think anybody's welcome to disagree with me. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Will an electrician be paid more than a radiologist? There's a really good chance it'll happen. And it's just the way it is. So yeah, it's gonna change a lot of things. But it's all the more reason to listen to Dr. Fei-Fei Li, who wrote a wonderful book called The Worlds I See, about the development of AI and how a computer was taught to see and understand. It's a phenomenal book that I would encourage your listeners to have a listen to. It's on Audible. She narrates it herself. The Worlds I See by Dr. Fei-Fei Li. She finishes her book by saying we have to keep this AI thing human-centered. And I think there's lots of ways we can do that. I'm I'm going to take your guidance and say we won't go too far into the weeds on AI today, but um, it's probably my most asked for topic at the moment.
I can imagine. And just a little tangent myself. I think it was the CEO of Indiva. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that company right, but um, he had said that the most um, prominent position is going to be electricians in the next 10, 15 years. And they'll become millionaires because they'll be working on all these AI data centers. But I mean, it's pretty dystopian. But I mean, yeah, I just found that to be interesting as well. But maybe down the road, you and I can have a part two and we can dive into the nitty gritty of AI. But
Oh, I'd love
um,
to.
yeah, I mean, it's a hot topic and I'm sure it'll only grow. But just for the sake of time, go just bring the focus back to you a little bit. A couple of rapid fire questions for you, and then we can wrap it up if you'd like. Okay, one word that defines great teaching.
Listening.
Okay, most overrated thing in education.
Staff room.
Okay, how come? I gotta.
Yeah, well, I was abiding by one word. I
Okay.
listened to a show on NHL radio all the time called Yes, No, or Maybe So. And if you don't answer the question with yes, no, or maybe so, you get they drop your call. You're not allowed to continue. So I'm training for that show. Okay. So when you said one word, I'm going one word.
Okay,
Um,
fine. Okay.
why did I say listening? Listening is the oh man, I put it in one of my keynotes. I love the quote. Listening is the key to communication. If everybody's talking at once and if all we're doing is conveying an idea, then we're not listening. And when I started really listening to my students, I became a way better teacher. Most overrated thing in education, my first teaching job, my first two schools I went to, I think I went into the staff room like a total, like if you averaged them out, like 2.5 times each year, I went in there. I didn't like the environment. I found that it was pretty negative, and we talked about the problem with students these days. And this kid over there, you know what problem he is? And I just thought that room is one I don't need to go to very often. I'll have lots of interactions with staff, but not in a toxic environment. And I'm sure there are lovely staff rooms out there, wonderful staff rooms, but I didn't find that. So I think they're overrated.
Yeah, I'm not going to question you on that. Your favorite pastime?
Building rock walls.
Okay.
And collecting the rocks. I spend whole days driving 30 kilometers on my ATV with a trailer and finding the right rocks, and I come home and I build walls.
Sounds fun. Sounds awesome, actually.
I lose myself in it. It's flow for me.
I was going to say therapeutic.
Yeah.
Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years?
Thailand.
To live?
Yeah, maybe spend a lot of time there. We went to Thailand, and I was smitten by the place. Like, so I mean, I'm taking you very literally on your question. Where do you want to be? I think so. I want to do a little more traveling. I want to live and embed myself in other cultures. And I think one of the things, it's going to be time real soon to give back more. And I think I've only begun to hear about organizations out there that allow you to help the most needy schools in the world, in some countries and places that they could really use help, and just moving away from a chalkboard is mind blowing for them, is from what I hear. And I think there's a whole avenue there. Somebody, I wish I remembered all the people that told me things. And I talked to somebody who'd been to some of the most remote kind of villages in Africa, and they said, be ready to go there, but be ready for it to change you forever. And I think there's coming a time to go into that kind of work and do some things like that. Maybe not entirely, but check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Best advice for a new teacher? Last question.
Boy, look, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier a little bit about it. Best advice to new teacher: be aware that you're modeling your practice after what you saw, and that practice was yesterday. It isn't necessarily tomorrow.
Love that. That's great. I'm going to write that down.
Hmm. Email me. I'll forget it. Like, hey, I said something really good the other day, Tracy. I just can't remember what it was.
Okay, you get the final word, sir. Any takeaways, hopes, and dreams for our listeners? Things that you want them to remember?
I think we have to embrace that we're at a super interesting time in education, and it's shifting curriculum, it's student voice, it's AI, but fundamentally, whether our classrooms remain human places of collaboration and interaction is entirely up to us.
Hmm. There's so much there that we could unpack. But
Next time.
yeah, with your expertise, I would love a part two. But thank you, Myron, author of Grading Smarter, Not Harder, and Giving Students a Say, international consultant, educator. You can find him at myrondueck.com.
Sure.
And from my understanding, you don't use Twitter a whole lot. Is that correct?
I don't use Twitter much, and my daughter's going to teach me Instagram one of these days. I am on LinkedIn. Um, Myron underscore Dueck, I believe. I use it quite a bit. For reasons that we can get into in part 3, I became a little disoriented with Twitter and some of the pieces behind it. And I find an inverse relationship between my happiness and my level of social media involvement. So maybe that's not what Dan Village wants to hear when he's promoting this on social media,
Hey,
but
that's okay.
it does not make me any happier. But I know it's a reality, and I do get involved in it. But LinkedIn, my website, myrondueck@gmail.com is my email. I've been so fortunate to be really, really busy in what I do, and I don't feel right now that I need to dive into a lot of those other forums. But I probably should.
Oh, I think you're busy enough. Um, Thank you, sir. You have amazing, interesting, and inspiring work, and somebody who I've personally followed for the better part of a decade. So I appreciate all that you've done, and that you'll continue to do in the future. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Dan. It's been a privilege. You love the tone and the cadence, I think, is the word of this podcast. I really enjoy it. So we can chat again. And I can I add one thing to my last thought? This is probably
Absolutely.
you can either put this in or you can edit it out. I think what I meant earlier when I said whether our classrooms remain human, because I want to say this so I don't walk away going, that's what you should have added to that, Myron, is I'd like new teachers or any teacher to think, who are the best teachers in my life who were not in schools? Okay. Just anybody listening right now, who was one of your favorite teachers, someone who taught you something, but was not in a school? And I think there's people out there that are going to think about their grandma. There's people who are going to think about their next door neighbor who taught them this. And if we deconstructed that, what were they doing? What were those people doing? And that's what I mean by it being human centered. Those are the humans we think about, and they're the people that, you had your elbows up, you had flour up to your elbows when you were making that bread with your grandma, and you just go, oh, this is how you do it. I think that if we deconstruct those moments, those things that we remember right away when somebody asks us a question about who is your favorite teacher or who had the greatest impact, those kinds of things, um, that that's what I mean by that. And those weren't AI moments. They weren't school moments. They weren't technological moments. They were learning moments. And there's probably little snippets in there for us. So that's kind of what I meant.
We'll definitely leave that in. We won't edit that part out.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day, and good luck finding those rocks.
You too.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.